So Elon Musk and Vivek are at war with the original MAGA supporters of Trump over immigration. And it's been just about 10 days since it last broke, but I feel like this is just the beginning of some fractures that we're going to see in the incoming Trump administration. So let's see what's going on. So on Christmas, the day after Christmas, you might have seen this tweet on the right from Vivek about immigrants and how American culture basically breeds mediocrity, and that people are spending too much time on the mall watching Boy Meets World, watching Friends, and not doing enough studying. So he wrote this whole long thing. I won't read it, but he does talk about the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ. A key part of it comes to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth in all caps. So, I mean, if you're a regular on Twitter, you know that controversial stuff drives the most engagement, and he, I think, intentionally is being like kind of obtuse here just to get more eyeballs, basically, like more traction on his tweet. Because the stuff that he says is kind of stupid. It's also pretty kind of dated. He's talking about Friends and Boy Meets World and hanging out at the mall. When I don't know if you know, if you I have nieces and nephews that are teenagers. They don't spend time at the mall. They're not watching Friends. But yeah, he's basically talking about how if your parents like teach you hard work and to keep you studying, that's the reason why so many immigrant parents are successful, or their kids are successful in STEM careers. And that's what he did. It seems kind of personal. But Elon Musk chimed in. It caused a big stir on X because people were like, oh, okay, yeah, so you're anti-immigration unless they're like tech companies and H-1Bs, then you're pro-immigration. And he tried to clean it up, and he said something about how he's always been against it, which in previous interviews he has said stuff like that the program is broken. And so if you're not familiar with H-1B, it's the special type of visa that you can have an employer sponsor to bring you to the U.S. to do a job that an American can't do. So I think I saw a graphic that the companies that apply the most for these are like Microsoft, Amazon, big tech companies. And then Elon Musk got into the fray, saying that he would fight to the death, the likes which you've never seen. He said something about ripping your fucking face off. He was quoting Tropic Thunder, and in the lamest way possible. But then Steve Bannon was big mad about it. So let's see what Steve was saying.
You look at this, and that there's some racism over there. You white folks, go look at that. That's a Fox specialty. We don't fall for that. So don't think you're going to come back and, oh, you know what? Well, what we need to do is increase it here and cut that cost there. Screw you.
Oh, yeah. So when people said, wait a minute, you want to replace all the high-tech skilled workers with immigrants, which, again, is also not necessarily fair. The H-1B program, I think it's about 60, 70,000 people a year that get H-1B visas. It also comes with I think it's H-2 visas or HB2, something like that, where if you're the spouse of somebody who's on an H-1 visa, you can also come here and work. So sometimes it's a twofer. And then that $60,000 cap is annual. So if you're on an H-1B and you're here on your second year, that doesn't count towards the cap. I'm sure that there's something, they're still measuring it. But, relative to like illegal border crossings or anything like that, it's not really the same number of people. So I think, it's important to understand like how many people are we talking about. But the criticism of the H-1B program is often that the employees that come here are like indentured servants. So if you're Amazon and you hire an employee through an H-1B, if you lose that job, you get deported basically. So you are tied to your employer. There are some stats that show that you get paid less than somebody who's not on an H-1B. And then there's also a lot of fraud. So there are a number of cases that the U.S. government has prosecuted, the State Department, Department of Labor, where companies will basically start a consulting firm full of H-1B employees, and then they get hired by a tech company to do like IT work. And sometimes the workers are paying the consulting company for the visa, so like that's illegal. You're not supposed to be paying for visas. And that's a type of H-1B fraud that, I don't know how common it is, but there are like multi-million-dollar schemes where, these workers are basically here paying for these visas. They're not qualified. And, it's a whole racket around it. And that's from, like State Department's own reporting from people that I know at the State Department. And, anyway, so Steve Bannon was like, well, let's hear what he said.
You clown. And then you got to suppress us. Oh, they're, blacklisting you, whatever they do. I don't care what they do on Twitter. I could care less. We're banned on every platform in the world, and this show is one of the most powerful in the world. Why is that? Because the content of the show resonates with the most powerful audience in the world. Working men and women that happen to be citizens of this great republic. This is a defining moment. Some of the people say, "Oh, Steve, we gotta have a group hug. You can't do this and let the Democrats." No, we're not having group hugs. We're not having pats on the head. You got to get this straight. First off, you got to get. Hey, I've said many times that Elon came and Elon's money helped organize the grassroots effort. In his engineering mind, he saw what the problem was as we saw it, and he supported it. And for that, he gets a place at the table. There's no doubt. You should. It's $250 million in June, not an entire cycle, in 5 months. But that dinner with Sachs and that check from Elon came at Biden's, when Biden, in the debate or right before the debate. And
he's talking about David Sachs. He's another big Silicon Valley investor that was backing Trump. He's one of the hosts of the All In podcast.
Biden, they kind of saw the numbers of where this thing was heading. They're recent converts, and we love converts. Hell, I'm a Catholic. We used to be in the convert business. Not so much anymore. We can't keep what we got. But in the old days, half the saints are missionaries. We love in converts. But the converts sit in the back and study for years and years and years to make sure you understand the faith and you understand the nuances of the faith and understand how you can internalize the faith. Don't come up and go to the pulpit in your first week here and start lecturing people about the way things are going to be. If you're going to do that, we're going to rip your face off. Because you can't beat us. We're not.
It's pretty creepy to hear him talk about MAGA as a religion, but that was on December 31st. That was a few days, I think, right around when this stuff was happening, and then he had this follow-up criticizing Elon Musk.
Up crony capitalism and Elon Musk. And by the way, when we cut him off, he went begging the CCP, and that's why they have the joint venture in Shanghai, the Tesla, which is 100% of his value, right? This guy lives on government contracts and taxpayer subsidies, okay? It's all. We're going to get Joe Allen in here for a second to transform it. Elon Musk, once again, brother, I'm smart enough to tell you no to your face, and I'm evil enough to be able to expose you as a running dog for the greatest enemy this nation's ever had. You're a war profiteer. You're sleeping with the enemy, brother, and you've been doing it because you're not an American nationalist. You're not even an American. All you are is a globalist, okay? A globalist. And you will go where anybody writes you a check, and you would take it from Adolf Hitler himself, because you're taking it from people that are as bad as Adolf Hitler. The murderous regime of the Chinese Communist Party, which you praised on their 100th anniversary. Let me bring it.
Yeah, so you see what he's talking about there. He's comparing the Chinese government to Hitler, and he's saying that Elon Musk will take money from everybody, which I think that's fair. He definitely. I think what you should pay attention to Elon is not necessarily all the trolling. Like, he just likes to piss people off, and I think the fact that he owns Twitter, it means that he can push whatever he wants, and he is intentionally just, like a loudmouth. But pay attention to what he does with his business. He never criticizes the Chinese government this way. It's really just about the power dynamic that Elon Musk finds himself in, where you can tell what his real beliefs are. So if you were following a few months ago when he was fighting with Brazil, so he was fighting with the Brazilian government because they were trying to censor certain speech on Twitter, and he basically told them that, he would go dark. Then, he was willing to fight them. He was willing to fight them tooth and nail over it, and claiming that he's a free speech warrior. But when he first bought Twitter, he said, he's free speech, absolutist, but you have to comply with the laws. You have to comply with the laws of the country. So when it came down to the laws in the country that he disagreed with, Brazil, he tried to fight them on it until he lost. With China, he doesn't really have the same energy that he does here in the U.S. So this happened a few weeks ago. The fallout has basically been that Trump said that he supports H-1Bs. He says that he uses them a lot, and I think what it really is just he owes them. MAGA voters say some hardliners concede H-1B reforms are tough. So I think after this initial backlash, Trump came out and said that he supports H-1Bs, he loves them, and then there was some moderation from Elon and Vivek saying that they want to see reform in the program, and that employers should pay a small fee, or make it more expensive to hire an H-1B employee, basically. And that this is really about the top, 1% of talent, and it's not about replacing entire workforces with, external workers. But it's exposed, I think, a lot of interesting fault lines around, well, when immigrants come here, whose jobs do they take? And you see that depending on what kind of job it is, different people are upset about it. When there are attacks on like illegal immigration and low skilled labor, there are a lot of arguments around like, well, the country, if there wouldn't be food on the table, if there wasn't low skilled labor in the country, illegal low skilled labor. I think the Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, said something like that the other day, because they're going back and forth over mass deportations. Mexico says that they're going to take people. The president of Honduras just came out and said that if mass deportations happen, that maybe the U.S. will lose rights to the military base in Honduras that they've had for decades. So, everybody's posturing, negotiating over how immigration will shake out under the Trump administration. But in this one, when it comes to high-skilled labor, quote-unquote high-skilled labor, engineers, I think that 75% of these visas come from India, and then the rest is made up. China, I think, is the next biggest one, followed by a few more. But that the people, so like on Silicon Valley, the investor side of things, they came out and they've been saying this for a while. On the All In podcast, they were saying that you should have a green card stapled to your diploma if you graduate from a 4-year college here in the U.S. And, I think that feels ripe for fraud as well, where foreign students already get preference into universities in the U.S. because they can pay full tuition. That's something that recently came out around like Harvard and some of the more elite universities, that you do get preferential treatment if you can pay full ride as a foreign student. But there seems to be like this very, very transparent kind of like, we prefer these immigrants over other immigrants, which, like each administration gets to implement their own immigration policy. That's fine. But what's interesting about it is just how betrayed some of, Donald Trump's own voters feel about this, especially when you have Elon Musk being so vocal about it, right? Like, I think he's the person they say George Soros is, which is like vocally demanding for things and saying, if I donate X amount of money, I'm owed certain policies. I'm not saying that doesn't happen with George Soros. I don't know, but it's funny to think that just a lot of the rhetoric around, Elon Musk coming to save you is kind of blowing up in people's faces. And then, people like Steve Bannon are pushing back, but who's got the money? Elon Musk, I think, has been staying at Mar-a-Lago for a few weeks, and he's there to get his money's worth. So it's not surprising that Trump is siding with him, but yeah, it's pretty serious betrayal of his voters, and we'll see how it turns out.